Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're painting a nice fall landscape. So let's jump right in. Okay, so to start, I'm just gonna go through my materials. I have my B watercolor paper taped down to my desk today. I do suggest if you are gonna tape down your paintings, you tape it to a board of some sort so you can turn it and move it if you need. I just couldn't find one right now, so it's taped down to my table. I have my Winsor Newton Professional Watercolors in my palette. I have my Princeton snap brushes in a size 12 and a size 6, round, water, paper towel. We're ready to go. Okay, also my painter's tape is just from the dollar store, just in case you're wondering. And I may use this Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white ink at the end. I haven't decided yet. Okay, so we're gonna paint a loose fall landscape and let's just jump right in. So I'm gonna take my bigger brush, my size 12, and I'm just going to grab this gray. So I have some Payne's gray here. My Payne's gray is a little bit more on the blue side, I find, than the COTMAN brand, but whatever you have, you can even just do a blue sky if you like, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna water it down and I'm going to, cover the background with a very light wash of this gray. I'm gonna leave a little area here though, or I can just fill it in with water. I don't wanna put too much color there because we're gonna be putting some lighter yellow trees and I don't wanna have a gray undertone to it. So I'm gonna grab more color. You can also use a bigger brush if you have a mop brush, whatever you have, just your biggest brush to lay down this color or this light wash. The amount of water that you want for a background like this is enough water that it will stay wet for a few minutes, but not enough that if you were to tilt your painting, it would run all over the place. The water would drip everywhere. You don't want it pooling in areas. You want it nice and smooth throughout the paper. Okay, you should see a nice little shine to it. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab a bit more paint. I'm just gonna put a little bit more at the top. You know, you can do some like kind of cloud lines. It's a gray fall day. I'm just gonna put kind of like a horizon line here. So we're gonna do some trees in the background. And then the same kind of pattern of grayness in the water here. We're gonna do some water. Very still water, like that. Okay, nothing too fancy. Okay, and then we're gonna do these trees. My paper's already starting to warp. It's all good. We're gonna do these trees in the background right here at this horizon line. So I'm gonna grab some dark green. I have this Perline green, which I really like. Might mix it with a bit of black. You can just use Hooker's green dark and purple if you wanna mix a nice dark purple or dark green, whatever you have. And I'm just gonna create this tree line back here. And I'm just gonna start doing some horizontal lines so it looks like there's some trees. And I'm gonna leave some spaces for some yellowy trees. Try not to have too much paint and water on your brush. You don't want it to bloom too much. But you want it to be like it's a faded background. Okay, so to control that a bit, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it on my paper towel, and I'm just gonna clean it up a bit. Keep drying it off and clean it up a bit. Okay, I'm just gonna move around that color a bit. Like that. Then I'm gonna grab a little bit of cadmium yellow. And I'm also gonna put it in there. Just tap it. Like we have some nice yellow trees in the background. You can do some in front. Just tap it, try not to push it around too much, and then it will bleed over top of the green. I'm gonna grab a little bit of cadmium red as well, which is an orangey red. Put some of that there, not too much. This is just a light kind of background, but we will put a bit more detail into it a bit later, so you can go lighter right now. Okay, And again, I'm just washing and drying off my brush. I'm just gonna clean up that shoreline right there, like that. Okay, so now let's wait for that to dry and then we can do the next part. Okay, so now that it's dry, you can kind of see that faded quite a bit, so we will be going back over it later. But now we're just gonna focus on these trees that are here, kind of like on this part of the shoreline that's closer. So I'm going to grab some yellow, some cadmium yellow, and I'm just gonna start placing in trees here. My brush is on an angle and I'm just kind of placing in trees. We're gonna go over top of it when it's dry and create a bit more detail to it. Not too detailed because this is, again, a loose painting. Let's grab a little bit of cadmium red. Put some of that in there. A bit more, maybe some yellow ochre. Okay, I'm just gonna move it around a bit. And then I'm gonna put in some evergreen trees in there too. So I'm just gonna do a vertical line down and then some messy kind of branches coming out of those orange trees. So I just have my dark green here, really light pressure. You can use a smaller brush if you want. I'm just using really light pressure in the tip of my bigger brush. For more control, I'd use a smaller brush. Like that, and just doing some of these little evergreen trees popping out the top. And they can bleed a little bit into those trees there. I'm gonna do some down here. I think I'm gonna have one coming over here. Okay, and the shoreline for this is gonna be kind of like right around here. So you can just place a line there if you feel more comfortable, just knowing kind of where these trees are gonna sit. I'm gonna have more of these evergreen trees coming down. Might mix it with a little bit of black too, just to darken it even more. And try not to make them so symmetrical. You want them to be more realistic looking. So you're not gonna have the same branches on each side. You want it, like trees aren't perfect, right? So just really kind of messily going back and forth like that. And then I might even bring some more down. I'm gonna get a little bit of yellow ochre, which is a darker yellow. Bring more of these trees down, maybe some bushes. You can mix it a little bit with the green too. A little bit more cadmium yellow. You can even grab a little bit of sap green too. You can put that in there. Maybe the trees haven't fully turned yet, so there's little bits of greenery, especially towards the bottom where they wouldn't get as much light. Or actually, I guess where they would get more light, they'd be a bit more green, wouldn't they? Because they'd be warmer. I'm just rambling now. I'm just kind of filling this in. A little bit more yellow down here. And we're gonna go over some of these evergreen trees too and make them a bit darker after too. I'm gonna grab my dark green again. Maybe a little bit of burnt umber too, just a bit of brown, mix it like this for kind of like the land part of this little shoreline, like that. And then I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it a bit, and I'm just gonna smooth it out a bit. And now I'm going to take clean water and I'm going to wet up this part for a bit of a reflection. Okay. Now we're gonna grab same colors and try and to mirror where those reflections would be, and we're just gonna let them bleed. We're not gonna make them too detailed. So there's yellow there at the top, there's yellow closer here. And you can kind of make it more like little streams of yellow, not like blobs. Does that make sense? There's orange here, so kind of go back and forth. A bit more color. Not too vibrant. I say that as it goes in really, really vibrant. My bad. A bit more orange over here. Okay, and then we're gonna get our green. We're just gonna kind of do some little squiggles. Just rough little reflections. Remember, this is not a detailed painting, right? We're doing a loose painting, so give yourself some slack. Get some of that lighter green. Or if you want, you can kind of blend it all together. Like this. Hold on, I want to make it a bit darker, closer to the shoreline. Oops. Lighter green. Okay, and then I'm going to wash off my brush. I'm going to take my smaller brush, I'm going to add some water just a bit, and I'm going to kind of add some clean water lines throughout this, so it'll kind of act like the water, the light, the highlights on the reflection of the water. Does that make sense? The water will push that color back. And I'm just going to take a bit more gray. No, I'm not. I'm going to wet up over here as well, just with water. Take a little bit more gray, and we can just kind of add a bit more movement in the water too. Like that. Okay? Okay, so now that that is drying, we can do this part. This part is dry. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wet where we put the trees, okay? I'm gonna put water here because I still want them to be kind of out of focus in the background, but I don't want them to expand too much in the sky. So I'm just gonna do kind of like a rough skyline of where these trees will end with clean water. Okay, we still want it all blurry, like this. Okay, and now we're gonna take our brush, let's start with yellow, and we'll tap a bit more. It can go a bit above the wet part, little dots. We're just gonna make it a bit deeper in color. So just going over those yellow bits again. Go a bit above that water line. Grab some orange. I feel like I want to make my orange a little bit more rustier. I have this brown madder color that I like to use, and you can just mix your red or your orange with burnt umber. We'll do kind of the same thing. Okay, and then let's get our dark green again. Okay, not too much water or paint. Kind of try and take some of that off, and then you're just gonna start doing your vertical lines again. We're just making these evergreens darker, so they can go again above that water line, so the top is kind of crisp. I think I'm gonna add a bit more black to my green, so it's a bit darker, because it's in the background. Okay, just very loosely. You do not want it symmetrical and perfect looking. Oh, that was not black. That was Payne's gray. It's all good. Okay, just going back and forth. Very, very loose. I love the way wet on wet looks when we do trees like this. It's so pretty. I'm just gonna move it to the background a bit. Black. It started to dry over here. That's okay. I'm just gonna wash off my brush for a second and add a bit of water because it started to dry. It's okay. And I just want it a little bit darker towards that shoreline. And then I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it a little bit, and I'm just gonna touch that shoreline a bit into the water. A clean brush and just drag it down just a little. Keep washing your brush off and drying it so you're not dragging down a lot of paint. And I'm just taking some clean water and I'm just going back and forth on those wet areas just to create a bit of a highlight. Because when you use water on watercolor like paint, it pushes that color back. I'm just adding a bit more detail to some of these tree tops. Like that. Maybe a little bit more darkness towards the base. Like that. Okay? I'll wash off my brush, dry it again. Just kind of clean up that shoreline a bit. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, is this dry? Yes, this part is dry, so now I'm just gonna add a bit more detail to these orange trees. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm just gonna start doing, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do a dry brush thing. So I'm just gonna take my brush and I'm just going to dab it on my paper towel. I don't know if you can see that, no. Dab it on my paper towel to kind of break up the bristles. It's not great for your brush, but I do it anyway. Okay, so it looks kind of all spiky like that. And then I just go into my wet paint like this. And that will kind of give me a little bit of tree texture to it. So I'm just gonna put more paint on my palette. A little bit maybe dark red, maybe some of this red. Wash off my brush, dry it on my paper towel and dab it so you can get that kind of spiky. Like that. Let's grab some red. Or some orange. And just dab it. A little bit of yellow. Just for a little bit of texture. I think I'm gonna grab some burnt umber. Wonder how many people are like, don't do that to your brush. It's fine. I have a few brushes, I'm okay. And then even to the green. Wash it off, dry it. Just kind of mixing it up here. Getting some darker bits in there. Okay, and then I'm gonna go over those evergreen trees on this part again. So get your dark green, your black. Do the same kind of thing. And it might bleed into some of the pieces you just did, but that's okay. Because that's the kind of, we kind of want that look of it not being so perfectly sharp. Okay. You can even just do some darkness on one side. And then just a little bit more definition here, kind of where that shore is. Okay, like so. Okay, and we're gonna let that dry just a bit. Maybe we can do just a small bird in the sky, really light gray, like that. I think we're gonna add just like a little bit of highlight in just a second. Let's let this dry first and then we will come right back and add a little bit of a highlight. Okay, so now that it's dry, I'm just gonna grab my white ink and I'm gonna grab just a little bit and I'm just gonna do a little bit of a highlight on the shore here. Like there, and then there too. So not a consistent line like all the way across, kind of make it jagged. It's kind of like where the water would be hitting. Then you can even do like just a few little lines in the water if you want. Blend it out. Like that. You can even do a little bit of white in there. And there you go. There is your fall landscape. Now let's take off this tape, my favorite part. And there you go. So after just taking a step back and looking at my work, I decided I want to do a little bit more detail to some of these trees in the background. I originally wanted them to be kind of at a focus and in the background, but I think this just looks a little bit better. And there's some kind of like bleeds here, which kind of look like bushes. So I think I'm just going to leave those, but just do some of these top trees here. Just sharpen some of those up a bit. So I'm just going to, again, very loosely and unevenly place some trees like that. A bit more black in there. And I might do the same with some of those orange and yellow trees too, only because sometimes once you step back, you realize like maybe your painting is faded a bit or there's something else you wanted to add. Always take a double look and just see if there's anything you want. And there is some such thing as overworking a painting, and sometimes that does happen, and that's okay, and that's how you learn. Yeah, sometimes I think I need to add something and then I try and then it just ends up like garbage. But that's how you learn, right? You make mistakes and there's no failed attempts. You always get something out of each painting, right? Whether if you're making some mistakes in learning or not. What perfect timing. My son is starting to wake up. Of course. Okay. I'm just gonna finish these up quickly and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.